It's strange how life sometimes circles back to a place you thought you'd left forever. And maybe that's why Meghan Markle's return to a movie set after 8 long years feels less like Hollywood news and more like a moment loaded with emotion, timing, and unspoken tension. Because the truth is, when she stepped onto that set in early November 2025, she wasn't just going back to acting. She was walking straight into a spotlight she once ran from, and a spotlight the royal family hoped she'd never return to. Imagine this. You've spent years trying to reshape your life, leaving behind the world everyone thinks defines you. And then one day, you quietly walk onto a film set in Pasadena, just a small cameo, just playing yourself, and suddenly, the entire world is watching again. Meghan looked relaxed that day, almost peaceful, joking that she felt rusty. But you could tell she had practiced. It mattered to her. It mattered a lot. Maybe because it reminded her of who she was before the titles, before the controversies, before all the noise. That's the thing about returning to an old dream. You know exactly how heavy it is. But the reactions have not been peaceful, because people remember things. They remember that interview in 2022 when Meghan said she was done with acting, that she had moved on. That acting belonged to a chapter she'd closed. So now, 3 years later, seeing her on a movie set again doesn't just raise eyebrows, it raises questions. Did something change? Did she change? Or did she finally admit something to herself that she wasn't ready to say out loud back then? Maybe the truth is simpler. When Meghan left Suits in 2017, she said it wasn't giving anything up it. It was just a new chapter. She sounded proud, hopeful, ready to be part of a team with Harry. And maybe she meant every word. But life doesn't always go the way we plan. Chapters we thought would be fairy tales sometimes become storms. And when those storms pass, people try to find themselves again. Maybe this cameo is her way of grabbing a small piece of the woman she used to be. Some people see that as strength, as reclaiming herself, as a woman finally doing what she wants, now that she's no longer bound by royal rules or palace expectations. Others are not so generous. Some experts call this a vanity project. They say Hollywood hasn't embraced her. They say the UK won't care. They say her brand needs attention. Opinions everywhere, voices everywhere, yet not one of them is Meghan's. But the most interesting part of this whole thing isn't the cameo. It's the timing. Because while Meghan was being photographed on set on November 5th, Prince William was in Brazil celebrating his Earthshot Prision of the biggest weeks of his year. And suddenly, the headlines shifted. Not toward climate innovation, toward Meghan. Again. Now, coincidence? Maybe. Hollywood sets run on their own schedules. Paparazzi photos surface when they surface. But even royal watchers admit, this pattern keeps happening. Quiet, months from Harry and Meghan. Then a reappearance, right when a major royal moment is underway. You can imagine how the palace must feel. They don't say anything publicly. They never do. Instead, the next day, they post photos celebrating William's Earthshot success. A subtle reminder of what they want the world to focus on. But behind those walls, behind those PR smiles, people who understand royal dynamics are sure this timing didn't go unnoticed. And maybe that's what makes this cameo more than just a cameo. It pokes at old wounds, old tension, old narratives. Yet, in all of this noise, there's one quiet question standing in the middle of everything. What does Meghan actually want right now? Is this her comeback? Is it a small step towards something bigger? Or is it simply a moment she took for herself? A reminder that she still gets to choose her own story. Because sometimes the smallest choices are the ones that change everything. Sometimes it's the unwritten rules that cause the biggest explosions. And in the royal world, there's one rule everybody knows, even if nobody says it out loud. You never overshadow the working royals. Not with an announcement, not with a photo shoot, and definitely not with a Hollywood comeback. You wait, you coordinate, you show respect for the crowd even if you walked away from it. So when Meghan stepped into the headlines right in the middle of Prince William's biggest week of the year, whether she meant to or not, it sent a message. 1. The palace didn't miss for a second. But behind all of that noise, there's another question people are whispering about. What does Harry think? Because according to sources, he's supportive. He wants Meghan to do whatever brings her joy. And maybe that's true. Maybe he loves her so much that all he wants is to see her happy. But you can't help wondering what goes through his mind when he sees the headlines. This is a man who gave up everything: his titles, his role, his home, even his family, for a version of life that was supposed to be quieter, safer, more peaceful. A life away from flashing cameras and public pressure. And now, 5 years later, Meghan is back in a spotlight, brighter than ever. Movie sets, fashion shows, brand launches. She isn't running from the public eye. She's walking